Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to welcome all of you to week 4 for strategic management for Newman University. And this week's content covers a couple of chapters, chapter 4 and chapter 5, both of them very interesting. The first one on strategy and technology, and the second on strategy in the global environment. So both of those very timely and relevant for circumstances we're in today. Few things I would like to highlight in regards to chapter 4 on strategy and technology. Again, I think read the content, go through all of it. There's a lot of good stuff. I'll just cover a few highlights in my post today, as I always do. First is strategy and technology. Technology is a double-edged sword. In many ways, it's the great equalizer in business and also strategy, but can also be one of the greatest differentiators. It's easier now than ever before for small businesses to compete at most levels due to the benefits and tools of technology. Small businesses can look very big. The types of brochures and things that you can print yourself now are extremely good quality. The way you can design your own websites, the way you can put together your image and your presence out in the marketplace has never been better than it is currently. Also, again, a lot of the tools of technology just make it easier, from 3D technology to any number of things that just make it a lot more even playing field. But then there's the other side of the equation. Big businesses are able to invest in specialized talent to help them marshal the tools and benefits of the technological landscape, and this can give them tremendous advantages. You know, folks that can help them with all levels of technology, from their social media presence to marketing to any number of things. And so even though small businesses are able to play on somewhat of an even playing field, businesses can quickly tilt it back their way with the specialization of talent that they're able to marshal within their larger organizations. Another key factor with business, so much of technology today is about data and data mining and harvesting and making sense out of the tremendous amounts of data that we're able to build and harvest in these businesses. So that is something where having specialized talent, having people that have the time and the specialization of skills to be able to manage that end of it can be a tremendous advantage for larger businesses. Now, there are consultants and there are folks that can help bridge those gaps, but it's still, I think you have to chalk it up to a big advantage for larger businesses. The second thing I'd like to highlight in terms of technology is the fight over the establishment of standards, especially when industries are emerging. We all, well, I say we all, most people my age remember the fight between VHS and Beta once upon a time when VCRs came out. There's been any number of those that have happened along the landscape since that time. So there's always these fights over standards. And the standards in an industry or in a compartment of an industry will emerge when enough businesses recognize the benefits of such standardization. And so in that respect, it's usually going to happen via cooperation among businesses. In many cases, an industry association might lead the way and marshal people's resources and talents to bring that standardization to bear within an industry. However, at times, there can be competing sets of standards. And that happens quite a bit where one firm or one group of industries is moving in this direction and the other is moving in that direction. And many times there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser, because eventually it's going to become very evident that it makes no sense economically or from an effort standpoint for everybody to try to go back and forth between the two. So at this point in the race, it's going to come down to how many businesses are really moving in which direction or the other. And the prize of the victory can be somewhat confusing, because at the end of the day, once standardization is reached, usually any company is going to be able to freely incorporate the knowledge and the technology that comes with it. The main prize to the victors is that they have a first mover advantage. They're already very well positioned, and they're very well positioned to move forward and to gain advantage based on that. The prize to the industry and the overall landscape is much less confusion and lower costs overall. One thing I would highlight is in figure 7.6, I believe it is in your book. It's called the impact on profits of a first mover advantage. That's what it's showing on the PowerPoint anyway, so you'll have to see on that in the book, but I'm sure it's in there. But the impact on profits of a first mover advantage. This dramatically shows the huge benefits to first movers versus those who imitate and follow. It also shows it does not last forever, but it does give a distinct boost for a substantial time period for the first movers. So there are huge benefits for being on the forefront of these standardizations and specific industries. There's also a lot of risks associated with that as well. So you got to balance all that out. And beware, as I say, the benefits of being a first mover are great, but the opportunities for disruption have never been greater. So no company, no matter how good your first mover advantage, can get too cocky or rest on their laurels for too long, or theirs may be the next industry that's going to be disrupted, and that particular company to be left behind in the process. Okay, on chapter 8, on strategy in the global environment, again, this is a particularly interesting one, especially with current world events. What I'd like to discuss today are the potential risks and rewards in this new, particularly the post-pandemic environment, whenever we get to that point, post-pandemic. First of all, there's no doubt globalization will be substantially impacted by the current realities of this pandemic. But as they say, how do we count the ways? And frankly, I'm not sure we can count that high. I think the changes to globalization are going to be immeasurable in some respects. Let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about. Initially, the road warriors that so eagerly, or at least acceptingly, traveled from one corner of the earth to the other will look at the math and the risks much differently post-pandemic. I know the airline companies, the major airline companies, are looking at this as a permanent change. They think that business travel, which is the foundational bedrock of the airline industry, will perhaps forever be changed. And so the road warriors that did all of that through the years, I think they're going to be looking at the landscape much differently. Next, global companies definitely take a fresh look at their love affair with the Far East and their lucrative manufacturing arrangements. There are many that are probably reassessing that logic currently and looking at the risks and the rewards, and that may forever be changed. I think global companies in general are going to look much more at how to disperse their footprint in a way to control and manage the risks of globalization. Again, having too much of their manufacturing footprint in one area, which is what they used to do quite a bit of, may be really scrutinized, and taking a fresh look at that approach. And companies that depended on globalization for the foundational structure of their industry, I think are going to be severely impacted going forward. Think airlines, cruise ships, tourism, the list could go on and on. And so that all being said, I don't think you ever get the genie back in the bottle. And that genie being, of course, globalization. I believe it will be like a tree or a bush that's pruned dramatically back. I think at some point it will come roaring back. But the million-dollar question is, how long will that take? And I think the answer depends on how long this continues to devastate socially, culturally, individually, and economically. The longer it lasts, the longer it will take for globalism to recover. If we would have another named virus and another pandemic on the heels of this one in the next year, 2 or 3, it could literally be a generation away before we feel globalization really hit the reset button. But I kind of doubt that will happen. We are resilient, and there are just too many substantial benefits for globalized societies and economies. So I do think at some point we're going to find a way to hit the reset button and get back, if not to normal, to some semblance of normal. And if not to the way we did things before, a different version of what we did before, but still accomplishing many of the same goals. As you'll see in the text in this particular chapter, there are many reasons and many strategies for companies to go global, if you will. While the benefits are substantial for those that take the jump, so are the complexities and the risks associated with being a global company. And the fact is, most companies will never have the ambition, opportunities, and or sophistication level to consider being a globalized company. It's very much like the major leagues, and there's very few companies that get to really play at that level in that league. It's just a fact. So anyway, in closing, I hope you enjoy the content for this week. Also note and watch for an additional supplemental video that I'll be posting for this week as well, looking at the global landscape and how it's impacted and how it fits into the larger and the bigger picture. So I apologize, my post is a little bit late. I usually try to have those done by noon, but I do want to show you real quick, if you'll bear with me. This is the reason for the delay. We got ourselves a new member of the family this last week, and her name is Molly. So Molly is newest member of the Straub family, so glad to have her on board, but I have figured out I'm not quite as efficient. Yeah, I'm not quite as efficient while I'm helping take care of a puppy today. So anyway, hopefully by next week we'll be back on target, and I'll have these done a little bit sooner. I hope to have them by noon most weeks. So again, be sure and reach out and talk to me if I can be of help, or reach out by email. And I look forward to talking to you all again next week. So, all right, well, thank you and have a great week.